Outside of Mammoth Cave in southern Kentucky is the small, unincorporated town of Chalybeate in Edmonson County. It is a sleepy town, too small even to have its own post office. But there is one resident who never has left. She lurks in the forests around the town as a reminder of a bygone era, the Faceless Woman of the Woods. Welcome back to Hometown Haunts and to our latest season, season 5 of the podcast. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am a haunted historian, cartoonist, and host of the show, Cac Loco, and along with me on this journey into the unknown are my friends Christina Wald and Jen Kohler.
Hey.
Hey.
No.
Yeah, it's been a rockin' few weeks for us all, and it's going to be an interesting October. It is October 1st as of this recording. Happy spooky season. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am slowly getting haunted trinkets out around the house a little bit more than normal. And pumpkins are now everywhere. How about you two? What's up?
I have some stuff out, but I haven't put it up yet. But then again, I kind of keep things out all year.
You observe the season all year.
Well, yeah.
It's in your heart all year.
Always.
We don't really decorate much. This sounds terrible. We don't really decorate much for any holidays.
It's fine. That actually sounds easy because
it's a lot of work.
Putting away everything is really hard. So
well, you've got like a giant skeleton.
We have two.
You have two giant skeletons.
So we have the 12-footer Big Mac, the shorter one Little Mac, which is 8 foot, and they don't stay out year round because their skeletons really are not built for that. And you have to I am part of the 12-foot skeleton group on Facebook. And RIP to all the skellies that were lost in Hurricane Helene this past weekend. I've seen the aftermath. It's like giants had a massive fight and their parts are just scattered around the ground. But there are people that will specifically reinforce their skellies so they can be up year round. We do not have that. But they will be joined this year by a gaggle of spidery friends. Ooh. I don't have skelly spiders because that's not how spiders don't work that way. But
invertebrates, but
yeah, they're invertebrates. But I have LED spider webs with giant black fuzzy spiders, and then for the daytime we have spider ropes. We don't put the actual polyester fake webbing out because it's super bad for the environment. But these are rope spider webs that are huge. And then they have those that don't glow in the dark. They're daylight hours. Have giant black and white spiders or black and orange spiders on them. So where the Pacific Northwest has an interesting added season that is, we don't get fake autumn like the rest of the United States gets. We have spider season. And so we go from summer to spider season to autumn. And spider season is when all of our giant house spiders, the woodlouse spiders, our orb weavers, they're all mating and they're all out. And it's fun. It's startling because they will be in everything. They'll be in your bathroom. I know I have one that likes to live in my bookcase down here because it will skitter around on the floor. The giant house spiders are large enough that on our floor, if you're quiet, you can hear them.
Oh,
wow.
And there's one that lives in my laundry room that I've named Debbie, and she only has 7 legs. And something epic happened. I don't know what. I like to imagine. And then let's see. Also, they like to get into my laundry. So I accidentally take them upstairs, and then I'll be folding clothes and then find one in like a shirt or in, because they'll crawl into the basket and the laundry gets loaded. I've accidentally washed a few. They just
Ooh.
they did not make it, so I've had to give
Yeah.
them little burials outside.
Aw.
But and they're not small. They live up to their name. They're about a $half in diameter, so about 2.5 to
What
4
kind are they?
inches. They're called giant house spiders.
Oh, okay, because
They
I was thinking
are
of the
of
wolf spiders kinda look like that too.
they're in the same family type of spider in that they're kind of a huntsman. They don't build um they don't hunt by catching prey in webs. They hunt by literally running them down.
Mm.
So they do build some webs for like egg sacs, but they don't. It's not like an orb weaver with the really intricate
Mhm. I love
multiple.
orb weavers, they're so
Yeah.
pretty.
We
They
have a
get
bunch
mad
of
at me when I try to
crossover
photograph
weavers
them.
around here. When you go hiking in the woods, you have to have what's called a spider stick, and it's literally a stick you find on the ground, and you use it, and you just swish it in front of your face to remove any spider webs, so you don't get them all over your face and hair. And
Well,
I've
it's
had
funny.
hmm?
Oh, go on.
Oh,
And
I've
I've
had
had
spiders hitchhike on me and the dogs, and then we just remove them, and none of them I mean, they all bite, but they're not venomous to humans or animals,
Mhm.
so, like, we just remove them off of us and put them in a bush. So
Our cat Thundar likes to eat spider webs and spiders, so he goes to all the edges of the house and
yeah,
tries to get them.
yeah, these a giant house spider would be, I guess, tricky for some cats because they are rather leggy, um, but, our dogs have not cared at all about spiders. They'll watch them, and then they run away. 'Cause,
Mhm.
giant house spiders are very fast. So,
Mhm.
Yeah,
that's
they've
what
got 8 legs.
they got really long legs. They are like the
Mm-mm.
pole vaulters of spiders. And then we have a
Mm-mm.
jumping spider in our
Oh,
family
neat.
room that's been slowly growing, and
Cat, you're
it
killing me.
doesn't have a name. It lives in our window. We have spiders, but we love them.
Mm,
They get earwigs that
mm.
are out here,
They
and
they are good because they do eat other insects.
yes, I found a false black widow a few months ago, and that was
Ooh.
fantastic. That was so pretty. Never seen one in person before, so we
Mhm.
Okay,
removed
I
her.
I live in a basement, and I'm slowly coming to terms with the spiders,
They are your friends, Jen.
as long as they stay the F away from me.
They are your friends. They do not I think the only
Mm,
ones that you have to worry about there are maybe brown recluses.
I don't think we get them
we
here.
don't get
They're
them
not so
here.
many, but they can live in the temperature now,
Mm.
and,
Yeah, they're a warmer climate.
they're a
I
warmer
grew up
climate
in
one.
Missouri, so Missouri has them, and you know what? I never saw one.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean they weren't there, but I
yeah,
never saw one.
yeah. They're not as alarming as I think. This sounds weird. They're not as alarming as the '90s made them sound.
Oh, they
Like,
made them sound like
they
they
made them
were
sound like
horrible.
if you got bitten by one, you died immediately.
Uh-huh.
And yes, they will make your skin necroptic, but,
Ew.
um, you have a fighting chance of surviving one, as well as a black widow. Just don't
I'm
antagonize them.
familiar with the wolf spiders too. One night, I also, my room was in the basement when I lived in St. Louis as a teenager. I woke up one night and my sweet kitty, Mr. Kitty, was looking at something on the wall very intently. And it was a
Mhm.
big old wolf spider. And I'm like, kill it.
Aw.
And he just looked at it and wanted to play with it. So I had to smush it with a pillow.
That
Aw.
poor wolf spider. The other thing you have
It
in
was in
Cincinnati
my bed.
now
No.
they don't wanna be in your bed, Jen. Just
It was.
it doesn't wanna really be there. They
Well, I took care of it.
yeah, it's gone. It is now in spider
You
afterlife.
And this
corrected
was
the
like
problem.
30 years ago.
Yeah. And then Cincinnati also has fishing spiders. They often get mixed up as being wolf spiders, but they are actually something different.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, I hate
and
spiders.
this has been Cat Spider Corner. Thank you
Yeah.
everyone for joining me.
I love spiders. I think they're very useful to the environment, and it's another bug that I don't want to call them a bug. They're because they're not
They're
insects.
arachnids.
They're arachnids. Um, but they definitely do have a place in the
Mhm.
ecosystem, and
They need to stay outside. That's all.
Jen
And if
is
they're
not
in
a
the
friend of
far corner
spiders.
of the ceiling, I leave them alone now. I don't
Yeah,
actively
don't.
hunt them down.
Yeah, they don't want you, Jen. You're too. We're all too big for them. They're big and scary.
We only have to worry about Shelob.
That's not the. I don't care. I know it doesn't want to eat me, but I just. They creep me out. I'm sorry. Bugs creep me out. You're
I
fine
will be
outside.
honest. The giant house spiders are very fast, and it's alarming.
Mm.
And I do get startled. I won't, as much as I love spiders, I do get startled when I see them. But I
Yeah, 'cause you're
don't
like, what's that?
immediately squish them. I just let them go, and I'm just
They
like,
usually run
run.
away from me because I try to take their pictures when I see them. Because
Yeah,
especially if the orb weavers are really pretty, and I'll be trying to take a picture of it, and it just starts running.
Yeah.
They don't like me.
I'm looking for the insect that I found this morning because I am I am a nerd for bugs. Um, where was it? It was. I need to look up. My phone is not agreeing with me. But it was a type of grasshopper. I think it was an oak tree grasshopper.
No.
Mm.
I need to look up my observations. Not the Swiss cheese plant. I wish it would. Wow, this is great internet or radio, everyone. Oh, here we go. The southern oak bush cricket. That's what I found on my door this morning. So, um, in addition to the western conifer seed bug. So, learning all sorts of things. Anyway, all right. Christina, you have fun news.
Oh, yeah. Well, I leave for Argentina on Thursday, so and
Woohoo.
I'm looking really forward to. There's this giant graveyard called La Recoleta Cemetery, and it's in the middle of the city. So, but it's not like an arboretum like Spring Grove is in Cincinnati. Instead, it's this giant, very Spanish, where they have the big mausoleums
Mm.
and statues and stuff, and it's got a bunch of famous people from, at least from Argentina, buried there. Like I think of Eva Perón's there, like, and her family's, in mausoleums there. So I'm looking forward to sketching there. And I
That's
think I
Yeah.
cool.
mentioned last episode, I'm hoping I don't have an incident like what happened in Romania where my phone decided to stop working.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
this is just I'm looking up a photo of La Recoleta, and it is amazing how gorgeous these mausoleums, and some of them have entire sculptures in front of them are. It's like St. Louis Cemetery number 4, but on steroids. Like,
Yeah.
if I can make a town that is full of vampires, it would be La Recoleta.
Yeah,
Like,
it looks like it would have vampires in it.
yeah, like, this is when you think of St. Louis Cemetery, what you at least in my head, how it looks, where it's literally a city of the dead because of all the mausoleums. They look like buildings. And there's some that look like, Gaudi-inspired type mausoleums and, like, some Art Nouveau ones. I'm looking at one that's an Art Nouveau.
Yeah, lots of statuary. I mean, it is like a city because it's like not it's like the anti Spring Grove because there's very little green.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's all marble and concrete.
Yeah.
But it looks really exciting to draw, and we're really excited. I mean, I'll be posting sketches so you can follow along on Instagram, and we'll be doing lots of sketching and taking pictures and stuff. So I'm really excited to see, the feel of the city. The city's kind of a university city. There's a lot of schools there, and um, you know, it's a fairly educated city. So there's some
Mhm.
really cool libraries. There's a really neat bookstore I think it was a former concert hall that looks really interesting to
Oh,
sketch
cool.
at. So it should be really fun.
Yeah, that
And
it look fun. I'm looking forward to seeing your cemetery illustrations the
yeah,
most, though.
that's one thing I should ask the people in Argentina if, like, and this is something probably that's not discussed that much. Obviously we talk about the US cryptids, but do they have a lot of cryptids like in other countries? I mean, Nessie is sort of the is Nessie considered the first cryptid, and that's like
I
in
really,
Scotland.
that's a really good question of relevance in pop culture. Because,
Yes.
yeah, like, definitely that or the Jersey Devil.
Hmm.
I think Jersey Devil has Nessie beat out by about 150 years or so, maybe
It's
200.
that old, huh?
Oh, Jersey Devil is a colonial New Jersey story, I thought.
Oh.
But and I'm sure the people in New Jersey that listen to the show are now shouting at their radios or computers. Um, but yeah, it's a really old story. There's also, of course, Pukwudgies and other indigenous stories as well. But as for taking over like international zeitgeist, that may belong to Nessie. So, because that was a well-known, internationally retold story versus the Jersey
Hmm.
Devil that's really stayed in New Jersey and then eventually seeped out. We also have Snarlygaster, which is from Maryland, and that
Hmm.
one is also pretty old. So,
This might be really sacrilegious, but like, and let me see if I pronounce it right. The famous Welsh, is it Bryn Mawr? No, it's the skeleton horse.
oh, Mary Lude.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The that stuff like that. Would that be in the cryptid pantheon, or is that more in lore pantheon?
that's a more a lore thing because it's really not a creature that isn't created without the help of man. Basically. And
Mhm.
ironically, I bought a vinyl sticker from an artist at CXC this past weekend of a Mary Lude because I was
Ah,
just like,
okay, so it's
"Yay,
fresh in
I
your
never see
mind.
this as a sticker." So I bought it and, yay, I appreciate it. I need to put it somewhere cool.
It's a
But
neat looking creature.
it is so neat. Yeah, there's it just yeah, there's so many and I was actually talking about this with, one of the parents at the bus stop this morning. Just like the psychology of writing horror stories and using
Hmm.
cryptids, and we can make an entire episode about that, just the psychology of why we believe weird things, and I actually have a book titled that, and, if people are interested, we'll make that into an episode, but, right now, we
Yeah,
got a little ghost story to highlight, but
yeah.
Um, I am home, just as a news thing, I'm home from both SPX and CXE, so the Small Prize Expo in Cartoon Crossroads, Columbus. It was wonderful visiting Columbus during the remnants of a hurricane, trees going down, power being lost. It was the good old Midwest that I never missed. Also really upsetting video and stories coming out of Florida up through the southern East Coast from Hurricane Helene. So we're keeping an eye on that, and, that's just really tragic.
Yes, I mean, what
Yeah.
happened to Asheville and Florida is pretty astonishing.
Yeah, and it's just astonishing is the best way to put it, and especially Asheville, because you would think that it would have been safe from flooding, but they got the wrong mix of circumstances, and now we
Mhm.
are watching that all unfold, so, oh, I feel bad for everybody. So,
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And there's a couple places where you can donate to help them get stuff that they need.
yep, I just
So,
donated this, evening to a different thing, so and I always donate to the Red Cross.
mhm.
That's a monthly donation that has been consistent.
And we were talking about like is the pet rescue in a lot of these places. You end up with a lot of displaced cats and dogs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff. And I think there are some rescue organizations that concentrate on or concentrate on them.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't even know how you evacuate like a cat, or if you have several cats, you need carriers for them, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, one of the things when I adopted my dogs was we needed to make sure that they were crate trained, and the
Yeah.
reason why, it's not anything we're not being mean to our dogs. My dogs do not live in crates, but they are comfortable in crates because if we need to ever be evacuated, and at the time it was for tornadoes, now it's for in the case of an earthquake. Um, if they want to stay in a shelter with us, they have to be crate trained. And if they aren't, then you need to leave, and that's really scary. So all three of ours are crate trained.
Oh, that's smart.
Um, that was just something I was told from another humane society to make sure that they're comfortable in crates. Not for like we're not looking at like 8 to 10 hours, but long enough that they'd be safe from other dogs and not cause fights and all that kind of stuff.
So, what was the best ghost stories you heard at SPX and CXC? Did anyone tell you any personal stories? Was there anything that stood out to you?
I met a young lady whose family was from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, whose mother had witnessed Mothman and been when she was in elementary school. And then what I actually got a lot of was recommendations for horror movies.
Oh,
Jen
so
was
what
there
are you
for
going to
that.
watch?
Yeah.
So what are you going to watch based on recommendation?
So I'm going to give a little shout out to Lee, who was a fellow artist in the Artist Alley, and they gave me a bunch of recommendations. I am flipping over to my phone because I made it in the notes app.
Thing.
Yeah. Let me see, where did it
end? The Stone Tape.
The Stone Tape was Children of the
interesting.
Stone was recommended over and over and over again.
Oh, interesting. Is that a new one?
No,
none of these are new. Yeah.
Children of the Stones is a BBC miniseries from the 70s or early 80s. And you can find it on YouTube, according to both Lee and another gentleman who bought everything that I was selling on the table. It was the biggest purchase I made. I should have given him more, like an extra sticker or something, but yeah, eternal gratitude to that gentleman. Let's see. M.R. James Horror Stories was another one, and the Omega Code. And then another fellow artist, I believe his name was Eric, did back up I thought it was a fever dream. There is a terrible horror movie called Rabid Grannies. Because somebody asked me what my favorite or love to hate movie that is horror was, and I have two. And the first one is Crowhaven Farm, which is actually a CBS Family Night movie from 1979.
And what's it called?
Crowhaven Farm. It is terrible. It makes me laugh so much. It is a young couple move into a farmhouse outside of Salem, Massachusetts, and there very strange things start happening. And it turned, I guess, spoilers because this movie is freaking old. Their entire neighborhood is made up of witch cultists, and they are trying to get them to join the cult. It's not a coven; it's a cult. And they wear the most terrible pilgrim / Salem era costumes I think I've ever seen. And I saw this movie at my friend Jessica's house when I was in like 5th grade. It just happened to be on TV, and it was a train wreck. I was mesmerized at how bad it was. And I remember the entire thing, but I forgot what it was called for many years, but I have since found it was called Crowhaven Farm. If you want laughs, go pop some popcorn and watch the movie. It is bad. The other one is, and I think it was Eric who backed me up. It is called Rabid Grannies. It is utterly terrible. But what made it notable is that it's a bunch of grannies that become demonically possessed. And when they are exorcised and or killed, usually both, you exorcise the grannies by killing them. The actresses had to regurgitate raw eggs.
Oh,
yep, that's every single time when I mention that is the reaction I get is I have now made everyone barf around their listening devices. And yeah, it was essentially that is those two movies lasted. They have made the biggest impression on me as horror movies. I don't like Rabbit Grannies because I don't like body horror, but I still remember it. And yeah, that's
So that's
that that
your favorite horror movies growing
they're
up,
not my favorites, but
or
they're
the
ones I
most
remember the most.
influentials? Oh, okay.
Um, The Haunting of Hill House is also one that that's one I particularly like, and its iterations. So that and Ju-on, or it's not the yeah, it's The Grudge in English, and it's a
Yes, I've heard
Japanese
about that
horror
one.
movie.
I have it.
And yeah, that one I particularly like. Not I also like The Ring,
Hmm.
which or
I saw
Ringu.
that one.
That one
Mhm.
is also very good.
I
They're
have that one
Japanese
also.
versions, not the
Yeah.
American versions. The American versions are trash. But they are fun to watch. So backing up a little, with my anthropology degree, my final dissertation I had to do was about Japanese and American horror movies and the adaptations and what makes kind of the internationalism of fear, and then
Mhm.
also what makes fear unique to certain cultures. Because these are movies that are essentially exactly the same, but they are the internationalism of them, how they adapted them for the American market is fascinating. For The Ring, that I remember is that at some point, I think it's The Ring, it could be The Grudge. I watched both movies, both versions back to back. It
Hmm.
was 10 hours of horror.
Whoa.
Um, but I think it's The Ring. In The Ring, all you see is Sanako leave. She haunts by leaving the TV. No parts of her ever go missing. In the American version, American version of Sanako, who's Samara, I believe is her name, she at some point is chasing someone and she loses her jaw. So you see just a tongue hanging out of a
Oh, now that
throat.
would be creepy.
And I was just like, that is a fascinating change because you couldn't make the ghost just creepy in its mannerisms to approaching the living. You had to actually remove body parts to up the horror factor for the
Hmm.
American audience. And that was part of my entire dissertation of what transcends horror and how what makes it different. So
Mhm.
it's yeah,
It's
that's what
because
it
we're
is.
only freaked out by the things we see.
So
Yeah,
Jen, oh
yeah.
yeah, what were your what horror movies are your favorites, or you remember the best
Well,
getting
I
into
think I've
horror?
mentioned this before on the podcast. Fright Night.
Oh yeah, that was a great movie. The first one or the
So
second one?
the very first one
The
in
first one
the
was very
80s,
good. Yeah.
it scared me so bad that I would sleep with my covers to cover my neck because I
Oh,
didn't want a vampire to come in and eat me.
that's really funny because I always thought of that as a comedy.
I thought it was
Well,
a
I
comedy
was
too.
young
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it came
If you're
out.
young, it's. I was older than you.
But here's the kicker. I watched it again in my 30s. Still freaked me out.
Ah.
Really?
Still freaked me out. Brought me right back.
Oh.
So, but yeah, it is pretty bad and campy, but oh, so much fun.
Oh, and Roddy
And
McDowell is so good in it.
yeah,
I like him.
I mean, everybody is.
Yeah,
But I also like the new version with Colin
I
Farrell.
didn't watch the new one, but I'm sure it was
There's a
good.
new version?
Yeah, it came
Yeah,
out
yeah.
a while back. Anton Yelchin is in it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think oh, what's her name? Tony something. She was in
Colette?
Hereditary. Yes, thank you, Tony Collette.
She's the only Tony I could think of.
Yeah, that's her. So, and of course, you know, any of the slasher films from the 80s, Freddy Krueger, Jason,
I
Sleepaway
thought
Camp.
Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, is the scariest of all of those.
Yeah, he was, yeah,
That was a really scary one when it came out.
yeah. But then there's this one movie that I saw. So I'm sure every city had this, like, kind of like an Elvira show at midnight
Yeah,
where they would
yeah.
show horror movies over, you know,
Like
late
the
night
Cool
hours.
Ghoul or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And I don't know what the name of this movie was, but it was a haunted house movie, and it looked like it was from the 70s. And for the life of me, I cannot find it. I don't know the name of it. All I remember is a woman running around the house and screaming and trying to get out of the house, and she can't because this ghost or this entity is trying to kill her.
It wasn't one of the Amityville horrors because there's like 3 or 4 of them.
No, this, I specifically remember the house. It was like that, the 70s colors, like wood. It was almost like a mid-century modern 70s house.
Oh,
I don't know.
Wood on wood?
Huh?
Wood on wood on wood?
Yes.
Everything
With,
is
you
wood.
know, the plants hanging from the macrame planters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think, at least in my mind, it was similar to the movie The Entity, which came out in the 70s also. So I kind of thought it was a knockoff of that, but for the life of me, I have tried researching it and I cannot.
Do you remember anything besides a ghost trying to kill a woman in a terrible 70s house?
Nope. That's all I remember.
I will look this up.
Okay.
That's a funny thing that you bring up the horror hosts, because my sad passion in life was to become a horror host.
Oh, that would have been fun.
That's not sad. So there was Elvira, who is the grande dame of horror hosts now. But out of Chicago, we had Svengoolie, and out of Indianapolis, we had Sammy Terry. And I love them so ding dang much, and I wanted to become one. And
awesome.
Of course, that entire market has just eroded away, like the wrappings of a mummy. It just disappeared
and
into the wind. So it's that campy horror that I love.
Yeah. And, you know, I didn't watch it much because we only had one TV in the house, and everybody was asleep by then, and my mom would have yelled at me. So I think I saw this at my best friend's house, and I was sleeping over, and she had 2 rooms. She had the whole second floor of her apartment was hers, and her mom was downstairs. So we would stay up late doing shenanigans, and that's, for whatever reason, that's all I remember. I think it was on Fox. Yeah.
Okay.
But it had to have been from the 70s, because in the early 90s, it wasn't a poltergeist. I've seen all those.
There's a bunch of those.
Yeah.
I actually think The Shining still holds up. That was really scary when that came out.
I agree.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that was probably one of the scary. You know what was really a scary movie that came out in the 70s was Alien. I mean, that was probably Alien and Exorcist were probably 2 of the scariest movies that came out of the 70s, because Exorcist, obviously, like, people were that was a pretty terrifying movie. And then Alien, like, I think it was a sleeper hit. Like, I don't think people expected it to become as
big as
popular
it was.
I mean, as is now. I mean, it was very shocking.
Yeah. Alien that whole series is one of my all-time favorites. Love
I
it.
have a stronger memory of the Mad Magazine version of Alien than of the movie, because I was too young to see the movie in the theater. I mean, I saw it later, but you know, because it was you know, one of those Mort Drucker cartoons with, and then in the chest burster was Kermit the Frog, which was really funny. But,
I've seen that. I just remember Alien from Spaceballs.
Oh.
I still do not like that scene. Like, I actually can't watch Alien because, as I have said, I know multiple times, even this episode, I don't like body horror. So the minute like anything is popping out of people, and I can't do. Ironically, what I can do is Deadpool. And before Deadpool and Wolverine, there was an ad for the new Alien movie. And like, Mike and I were just like, we can't, no, like, there is one part where they show the alien just basically ingesting the organs of one of its victims, but you see them backlit, so you can see it squirming around in the rib cage, and I'm like, what? No, I can't do it. So, and now I've just grossed out everyone else describing that.
I have nightmares of spiders. I used to. I haven't had one recently, but I would wake up like trying to get things off my face. And it
Yeah.
was always a spider a la alien like coming at my face.
Like a little
Right.
face, little
Well,
face.
maybe that's why I don't like spiders with all its
I think
thingies
that's why
out.
they designed them the way that they did,
Well, of course.
because when you're writing for kids, when you're writing horror for kids, you go to the basics that just freak people out, and
Mhm.
spiders is on that list.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, intrinsically, people are afraid of them,
Yes.
and, I think that's why the alien
Mhm.
baby aliens
Yeah,
were
they're
designed the
babies.
way that they do,
Yeah.
that they are.
And don't forget Arachnid.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes, arachnid.
I mean, after that movie came out, a lot of people didn't know they were afraid of spiders until they saw that.
True.
My
You know
brother
what?
is one of them. He can't stand it.
Yeah. Also, it reminds me, one of the horror movies that I one of the first ones I ever watched was The Blob from, like, the 50s,
Mhm.
and that one, I remember watching it, and I couldn't process. I'm like, "Am I supposed to laugh, or am I supposed to be scared by this? I don't know." And I remember my little mind going, "I'm scared, but it's funny,
Mm.
but I'm scared,
Mhm.
and it's funny?" Like, try to come up with what was happening. So, that was fun. I like The Birds, though. That's a fun
Oh,
one.
that's a famous
That's a
one.
good
That's a
one.
Yeah,
famous
that's a fun one.
thriller.
Mhm.
But I
I
guess
like
we
Hitchcock
digress.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
tis the
thank
Speaking of
you.
season.
horror,
Yeah, it is the season,
Yeah.
and
it is. It is.
did we ask Christina what horror movie?
Yeah, I said The Shining.
That's
The
right, The
Shining,
Shining.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, The Shining. I thought that was a very scary one, and it's a very memorable one. I mean, it's just so
Mm.
well directed, and it's the thing I like about The Shining is that it's, and the thing I like about Kubrick as a director in general was he tended to be more minimalist. I think now a lot of horror
Mhm.
movies rely on music and sound effects and jump
Mhm.
scares to like amp up the situation. And the thing I like about Kubrick is he uses silence really well. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of directors are afraid to do it. Like he'll use silence, he doesn't have wall-to-wall music.
Well,
And
because then they
so
can't tell, with the music, then the audience can't tell when it's coming,
yeah,
and that's more frightening with the silence, I think.
it
Yeah.
is, it
Yeah.
is. And it also I think like the emptiness
Mm.
creates a tension when you're in a theater that
Yeah.
now everything is so like the way they direct everything, it's so like punchy, and they don't allow for like slowness or silence. Like there's a
Yeah.
huge difference between movies now and say movies then because they allowed things to be slow.
Yeah.
Have you
Oh, yeah.
seen the movie The Orphanage? Sorry, this reminded me. It's a Guillermo del Toro movie.
I have seen that. I love
I have
Guillermo
not.
del Toro.
So I saw it in the theater when it came out at the Esquire. I had free tickets from work. And there's a scene that's very slow and anticipatory of this woman, the main character, reaching to open a door, and something's behind that door. My butt screamed in the theater
Wow.
before she even opened the door. So first time I've ever done that, but I couldn't take it. I couldn't take it.
He was pulling all the buttons.
Yeah, really.
It was good. I like that movie. It's a very good one.
I know I need to watch it.
Mhm.
All right. So, getting on to tonight's show, we are bringing back the good old ghost story. And this one I have named The Faceless Woman of the Woods. And I got this story from Ghosts Across Kentucky by William Lynwood Montell. And I'm holding up the book for our
Ooh, that's a
YouTube version.
great picture on that cover.
I know, right? And I got this from our friends at Hierophany and Hedge. This is a very fun for me, maybe spooky for everyone else. Very well written book about holler and other Kentucky legends and ghost stories that are the way that William or Montell retells these stories is that it's in a very personable, friend-like you're around the bonfire perspective. And it's what I particularly appreciate with this story. So the thing is with a lot of these stories, this one we can look into history with, but a lot of them are just friend of a friend motif stories. You're never going to be able to prove that they do or do not exist. That is the fun essence of a true ghost story. So for tonight, I will tell you The Faceless Woman of the Woods. Ghosts are memories of days long past. They are wisps of memory that occasionally return to our minds, especially during the autumn time. There are reminders of people or places we lost, and some are revered, but most of the time, the ghosts are feared. This started as a haunting, as told by friend of a friend, as I just mentioned, and retold by author William Lynwood Montell. And the story goes like this. In Chalybeate, the ghost of a faceless woman haunts their woods. Only the brave or foolish travel in her woods, sometimes as a dare, or often while deer or fox hunting. As the story goes, a young man and his father ignored the warnings and set up their deer stand in the woods in Chalybeate, expecting to bag a deer or two on their hunt. Their quiet waiting for a deer to pass was interrupted by the form of a woman walking towards their stand silently. The son looked up at his father, only to see his eyes locked onto the form. The woman stopped under their stand and looked up at them with a gnawing void where her face should be. This sent chills down their spines, but they wouldn't dare move while she watched them. She stood there only for a moment before backing up and leaving without a sound. The two hunters quickly packed up and left the area, vowing never to return to the faceless woman's woods. They were not the first, nor the last, to encounter her. The woods now stand at the location of the old Chalybeate Springs Hotel. Legend has it that the woman has a Let me start over again. The woods now stand at the location of the old Chalybeate Springs Hotel, and legend has it that the woman has a disfigured face and had a life shunned by the community. Montell has a different interpretation of the legend, and that connects with the former hotel. In the 19th century, Chalybeate was a busy place. The springs were discovered there in 1830 by Dr. William Ford and became a tourist location for the mineral baths. This is not the first time we've talked about haunted mineral bath hotels. The baths were said to cure anything from drunkenness to skin conditions and fatigue to tuberculosis, and were said to be healed by bathing and drinking the water from the springs. There were activities at the hotel outside the springs as well, such as horseback riding, biking, tennis, dancing, dining, and fox hunting. The area the area's wealthy upper middle class were frequently visiting the hotel for its entertainment and amenities, and it is said that President Andrew Jackson visited on multiple trips to the hotel during his presidency. The hotel was a source of employment for the area, and when the hotel did well, the community flourished. Residents of the town could also enjoy the spring, entertainment, and amenities at the hotel and its grounds. Shop owners were allowed to bottle and sell the spring water at their businesses to tourists in town. Tourism to the area declined in the 20th century as mineral springs fell out of fashion, and then the Great Depression and Second World War saw massive drops in tourism. Eventually, the resort was forced to close. Today, the only structure left standing is one stone wood spring house and a roadside historical marker telling the story of the hotel and resort. But it leaves out one thing: the faceless woman. So, where does she fit in? Local legend speaks about the tragic history of one of the families that owned the hotel and resort, and many did at one point. While the resort was still in operation, an elderly owner passed away, leaving management of the business to his wife. They had two sons who were all the way up north for school. Soon after taking over management of the business, the lady fell ill with cancer on her face. She pleaded for her sons to return home from school to take care of her and the hotel, but they rebuffed her cries for help. Broken-hearted, she died at the hotel alone, with cancer eating away at her face. Her sons never returned to the hotel, instead opting to sell the land and the hotel to some other family. Now the faceless woman wanders the woods looking for her sons, often mistaking hunters who visit, like the father and son at the top of the story, as her returning family. When she realizes they are not her boys, she flees into the darkness of the woods she calls home. And that is the story of the Faceless Woman of the Woods.
As a anthropologist, why do you think that the idea of somebody being faceless is such a strong image? Because that's sort of a horror staple, seeing like either obscured features that are blurry, like the book you just held up, or no features at all. Why is that so strong?
Well, from what I've read and studied, yeah, you're right. This is not a unknown feature of ghost stories.
Mm-mm.
Um, there's a lot of Japanese ghost stories that immediately pop to mind that have faceless women, and also in Hawaii, there's also stories of faceless women, female ghosts in random places that you're running into. Um, as people, as humans, we look for recognizable features when we look at other what we believe to be human entities.
Mhm.
And the first thing that we look for, at least if you're me, is eyes on a person. And then you look for a nose and a mouth. And then you kind of start putting together that they're a person. It's one of the first things as infants we are looking for is for the recognizable faces of our parents.
Mhm.
To not have that type of feature on an entity and it is completely blank, or in this case, a void, is alarming, and it's going to immediately offset, like throw you off your game and make you feel super creepy that something does not have a face. And it goes back to the talk about spiders from earlier. It's just kind of a universal fear or anxiety that people have when you can't find something identifiable with the entity that you're encountering. If that breaks it down real easily, um, I'm sure a psychologist would have a far more intricate take than what I just said, but I think we get the gist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is interesting because I didn't expect a faceless woman story out of Kentucky. I don't know
Mhm.
why, but to me, I grew up on them being Polynesian or Hawaiian, specifically, or Japanese stories. Noperobo is what they are in Japan, and they're
Mm.
also called Noperobo now as a loan word in Hawaii. And in that case, Noperobo are found. They're faceless trickster ghosts that like to harass travelers. So, and you're looking at the story started popping up from what I remember around the Warring States period to the Edo period, and the Edo period was a long period of time, or the Tokugawa, um,
Mhm.
um, the Tokugawa era. Oh, when that's all your samurai, and you think
Mm.
of Tokyo as a city has existed yet is still called Edo, and that is a lot of that quote unquote medieval Japan that you see in the West. That would be that particular period, and during that time, it still exists. It's called the Tokai Dori, which is the major road that connects what would have been Edo to Osaka. So it runs along the southern coast of Japan, and or the Tokai Road, and travelers, if you were a merchant or traveling anywhere in mainland Japan at the time, you'd be using that road. And some of it is dark and treacherous and on mountains, and sometimes travelers alone traveling at night would come upon what they thought would be a friendly fellow traveler and who would give them advice, and if they followed it only to be have terrible things befall them, and then when they run into the traveler again, it turns out there's no face. They've been
Eh.
tricked by an entity. And the story that I remember from Hawaii takes place in a movie theater
Ooh.
where women would go use the facilities in this particular movie theater and see another woman particularly putting on makeup, and when they turn to look at her, she has no face.
Ugh.
Wow. That sounds
So,
cool.
yeah, and it kind of goes in an odd way, at least I would class it, into entities that have extreme body modification. So
Hmm.
another one would be entities with a Glasgow smile, which is their face has been seared from ear to ear.
Ugh,
So
yeah.
their mouths are extra large. Kind of like the Joker in a
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there's like
There's
that
a
movie. Yeah, there's a movie about that.
yeah,
That
there
smile.
the smile, and
Mhm.
there is a well-known urban legend entity in Japan. Now, mind you, my specialty is Japanese ghosts and entities, so this is where I'm drawing lots of this information from. And it's going to sound strange, but I've been laughed at when before. Its entity is called Kuchisake Onna, which literally means the slit-mouthed woman.
Ugh.
Oof.
And it is essentially an entity that will come up to travelers. In the case, it would be school children who are traveling from home to school late at night, or from cram school back to home late at night, and um, come up to them and ask, "Watashi wa kirei?" Like, am I pretty? And depending on what your answer would be, depends on what your fate would be.
Oh.
And it could be anything from, yes, I think you're pretty, and nothing would happen. No, I don't think you're pretty, and she either curses or immediately
Ooh.
kills you,
Oh.
or doing the answer, like, I don't know, and confusing the entity. And there's a lot of different ghosts that have body modifications. Teke Teke is another one that's an urban legend where it has no legs and she crawls using her arms.
Oh,
Oh
God.
yeah, we talked about that one before, didn't
Yeah,
we?
Mhm.
and so I kind of feel like these faceless entities fall into that same category where they're shocking you and surprising you, but ultimately nothing bad happens to you. I have never
Yeah.
read anyone who's died from Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman,
Mm.
or Teke Teke-san. Like, those are urban legends.
Hmm.
What I find interesting is that the woman without a face here, there could be a reason why the entity shows without a face, because if it was something of to be shunned by or people were disgusted by and she doesn't wanna show it in death, she just doesn't, and you highly identify with your face.
Yeah.
Like, um, it's the it we could go into, body modification and extreme plastic surgery, but you identify with how you look, and if you're ashamed of how you look, in death, you may not want to show people what you looked like. But unfortunately, one of the ways that we kinda identify people is with their faces,
Yeah.
and if she doesn't show it, we can never identify who she is. So she becomes this nameless ghost haunting the woods looking for her family, which is extremely sad. So
Yeah.
It is.
so when I said this was a good old ghost story, this is really literally a good old ghost story. There is
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
to it,
That
but we
was
do
so
find
interesting.
historical connection. Hmm?
Can you still visit there? I mean, I
Yeah,
suppose it's
it's
not
there.
really.
There is a, marker, um, and the mile marker or the historical marker is just one of those large national register of historic places
Hmm.
markers, and it is in the middle of what looks like basically a triangle between Kentucky State Road Kentucky 101 and then an off road that starts with the number 3. I think
Hmm.
it's 3476, but it's been a while since I looked exactly at the number. But there's nothing standing in this area. So that's where part of the hotel had been. And
Hmm.
the one spring house is still standing. The other one has fallen apart, and the actual original hotel has been built and raised so many times, and
Hmm.
it eventually did fall apart and has never been rebuilt.
Mm.
So there are photos of it though online, if you want to look up what this house used to look like. Ironically, this is the second house or hotel that is named um, Chalybeate. Um, there is also a Chalybeate Hotel in Pennsylvania that is also on the National Historic Record of, oh man, I just butchered that name. The National Register of Historic Places. There we go. So you have two Chalybeate inns that have been on this. But one just has a spring house. It's just a stone and wood spring house that is covered in ivy. And that's the one in Kentucky.
All right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, do we have any listener stories?
No, not this week.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
we talked a lot about horror movies at the top, so I think we're good. So, yeah.
We're at a good time.
Yes. And I would love to hear what our listeners' favorite horror movies are and what makes it their favorite horror movie.
Oh,
so it's I'm always interested in what people are loving with horror movies, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I write horror stories myself. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And just what is your favorite horror movie and why? And it doesn't need to be a long essay, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So okay. So you can follow us at Hometown Haunts _podcast or Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram. You can join our Facebook group, Hometown Haunts, and you can also write to us at hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com, and that's where you can share your favorite horror movies and why at that email, or share your own spooky stories from around your neck of the woods. We're dying to hear them. So for Christina, Jen, and myself, good night, good luck, and goodbye.
Bye.